Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the Our Turf Football Podcast. I am Dana, and this is my very good friend, Michelle. I'm so glad that you joined us, Michelle.
I'm so glad to be here.
I
And
know.
especially I get to be here with you. So
I
that's
know.
double awesome.
We have Michelle and I could literally talk about football for hours on end, but we promise not to do that to you. Kate is going to join us. She's having some technical difficulties, so she's rebooting and she's going to join us here in just a couple of minutes. But thank you, everyone. The Our Turf Football Podcast. We are here for you every Tuesday through the entire offseason. Now, we might take a couple of weeks off after the Super Bowl. Just take a breath, right? But then we'll be back and we're going to be here all off season for you. It's going to be great. All right, everyone. We want to, of course, mention our sponsor. For the last 2 years, Donkey Steakhouse, not Steakhouse, Cheesesteaks have been our sponsor. They have 3 locations in New Jersey, Medford, Mount Holly. Oh, I'm just blanked on the last one. Where's the other one? Medford. This is why I need Kate. Medford, Mount Holly, and Camden, I think. Yes. Anyway, so we're thrilled to have them. But most importantly, you do not need to be in New Jersey to have a delicious cheesesteak from Donkeys. You can go to goldbelly.com and you can look up Donkeys cheesesteaks and they will send them right to you. I think it's Camden brand. Look at our friend Graham, who's always in the comments. God love Graham. He's like, Camden? I could be wrong. My brain is frozen today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyway, go check them out. Donkeys cheesesteaks. All right. Well, Michelle, while we wait for Kate to join us, I wanted to chat with you for just a little bit. So I have a theory and I want to know your theory about it. So, and I didn't tell you I was going to ask you about this, but I want to talk to you about this. So
Uh-oh.
there has been a frenzy, all right, around Sean Payton and where he's going to end up coaching. Now, Sean Payton obviously was a successful coach. You could call him that in New Orleans. He had a Hall of Fame quarterback, won one Super Bowl, didn't make it back. Did they go back even? I don't even think so. Made it to the NFC Championship maybe once or twice. So here's my question for you. I'm curious. Why would any team give up 2 first-round picks, if not more, for a coach that had a Hall of Fame quarterback and had all these great things? And all my Seahawks people are going to come for me because they're going to say I can say the same thing about Pete Carroll. But nobody's asking for 2 first-round picks for Pete Carroll. What is the deal with Sean Payton? Is he just the hottest name out there?
I think he's an offensive genius, is what they say. And so he's an offensive genius. He's won a Super Bowl, and even though it's one, there are not many coaches out there who won Super Bowl, and people don't understand how difficult it is to get back to that Super Bowl. But offensively, he has a offensive mind, and I think that's what makes him on top of everyone's list, especially if you have a pretty good quarterback or you have a good quarterback. If you have a good quarterback, Sean Payton can come in there and make them better and get an offense around him and put in a system that fits that quarterback. And I think that's why he's such a hot commodity.
You don't think it's just the hottest name? So here's the way I look at it. He kind of retired early, you could say. He decided to step away from the game and go be a TV, personality, which he's okay at. I wouldn't say it's his strongest suit, but he does a decent job. He's really good at certain aspects of it. But I'm beginning to wonder if it is just because he's got great experience, but he's younger and he didn't go out on a bad note. Like, I think there's just some name recognition there. Oh, look, here's Kate. Hi, Kate.
Well, it's always name recognition when you talk about things in the NFL because it's a copycat league. So if someone is interested in, Jerry Jones, that's all. His name is always thrown up every time Dallas has a coaching search or something. So if one team or 2 teams are interested and they're consistently interested in him, then that's what the next team do. It's just like when you hire a young coach, and if that coach wins, then everybody hires young coaches. If you get a linebacker coach or a defensive coach, and that person wins, everybody gets a defensive coach. It's just
so
what
true.
they
Copycat.
do. Yep,
you're right. It's true. Okay, well, we're talking about Dan. I'm so glad that you could join us. Sorry about your technical difficulties, but what we're talking about is I'm questioning Sean Payton. So here's the thing: he's a hot name. Everyone's throwing red carpets out for him. They want 2 first-round picks for him, which holy crap, right? Like Denver has first-round picks to give away. Like I can't even get over that. But as a coach, he was very successful. But he's not Bill Belichick successful. You know what I mean? He had won 1 Super Bowl with a fantastic quarterback and really strong teams over the years. So I'm a little surprised, and I want to know kind of the reasoning behind, which Michelle said great, is very well. It's a copycat league. Why he's such, why him? I think honestly, maybe, and this is just my opinion, I want to know what your opinion is that maybe it's because people are a little tired of the unproven coaches, especially in Denver.
I think you're right. He's still what I would call a young coach in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
I'm as puzzled as you are, because when you say he's not a coach like Belichick or something like that, it makes me think, what is the Sean Payton coaching tree? Who were the assistant coaches that he had in New Orleans that have gone on to do anything? So he's not in my head some legendary head coach, but they've been bringing these guys in from the college ranks. They've been promoting these guys up from offensive and defensive coordinators and back and forth. And they haven't really done well, or at least as well as people had hoped they would.
Right.
John has experience. He has proven success. He's had some issues, but it's been enough time that, the average 20-something football fan doesn't even remember what went on in New Orleans with the bounties and all of that kind of stuff. They're like, what? So people have short memories. Winning fixes everything. And so if somebody wants to bring a coach in who's proven that he can coach an NFL team, that's him. But I 100% agree with Michelle in that it's the name recognition thing. Everybody knows his name. Everybody knows who he is. And as soon as one team went after him, then everybody started going. And I don't know if any of the rumors are even serious. I was more interested in, I thought it was interesting the Browns went after Jim Schwartz for defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I think I saw today that Bill O'Brien got picked up as an offensive coordinator
by the Patriots.
So it's like, while everyone's looking at what's going on with Sean Payton, all these other guys are getting jobs and moving around to where they want to be. So
it's interesting. They said today, so there was on Twitter, one of the national media members, I can't remember who it was, said the longer Sean Payton doesn't have a job, the less likely he is to get a job or to take a job, that he's probably going to wait out another year. And I don't know if he's waiting for that Chargers job. I would be. And, Staley has another bad year. Out he goes. Sean Payton slides right in there. And so, maybe that could be it. What I find interesting is that he is the one the media is talking about. Him and Dan Quinn. Now, Dan Quinn seems to be getting a lot of head coaching looks too. Love Dan Quinn. He's one of my favorite coaches in the NFL. And we're going to talk about Dallas in depth here in just a little bit, but Dallas would be idiotic to let him leave that. It would be crazy. So, all right, well, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start talking about these divisional rounds that happened this weekend. We're going to take them game by game, kind of get some thoughts about them. And then we're going to talk about Dallas for a few minutes. And then we are going to talk about the upcoming NFC and AFC championship games, which look to be pretty good. I'm pretty excited. So let's start with the first game of this last weekend. That would be the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs won 27-20. Which, to be honest with you, the game didn't feel as close as the score was. It really didn't. It felt like it was all Kansas City there for a while. I think Jacksonville put up a pretty good fight toward the end and started to get a little bit of rhythm. I think it greatly helped that Patrick Mahomes had a high ankle sprain, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. But I'm interested in this game from a Jaguars perspective. We knew what we were going to get out of Kansas City, but I was rather impressed with the way Jacksonville handled the pressure of this game, and you could tell they were a young team. Michelle, I'm going to start with you. When you look at Jacksonville, I really feel like they're an up-and-coming team. I feel like they're on the rise, and they just ran into the brick wall that is Kansas City. Yeah, you're muted, sister. I do it all the time.
I absolutely agree. When you look at how they were able to come back the previous week after Sunshine threw the interceptions and came back and was able to win that game against the Chargers. I was about to say San Diego, so I have to
Go
stop
ahead.
myself. The Chargers. Yeah, I mean, it looks like the only thing they needed to do was get rid of Urban Meyer. I mean, they came in. They look great. They have up and coming defense. ETN. They can run the ball. You know, I think Sunshine is still learning. And once he can get himself, get his feet under and learn a little bit more, I think they are a team to watch. And you can kind of see it as the season got going near the end, when they started winning all the games. They beat Dallas, and they came back in that game. That's a team that doesn't quit. And so as you watch them play Kansas City, you knew they were coming back. They're going to keep playing. They're going to play until that last whistle. And any little inch, they get momentum and they start. But their defense is pretty strong. I mean, I think they can add a few more receivers, but I think they're an upcoming team. And we kind of felt that way about them a few years ago. And when they got Urban Meyer, everybody's like, this is a team to watch. But it was like, duh, and it was just like they dropped the ball. But now we're seeing what people thought when they drafted Sunshine and when he got there, and all of the people that they got around them, and because they were pretty good. They were kind of good or on the rise prior to that draft. And so they added some pieces, and now we're starting to see what they can do. And it's up from here. I think they're going to get better and probably win the division again, and probably more convincingly next year.
Kate, we have talked highly on this show about Doug Peterson all year long, and I think that he is a fantastic football coach, and you can really see that with the way that this team progressed through the season. When you look at Sunshine, Trevor Lawrence, when you look at him, though, it almost felt like his rookie year. Like last year didn't even happen, with Urban Meyer being the disaster that was. And you feel like that Doug Peterson got a hold of him, and he said something in a press conference. I believe that it was something, and this isn't the quote, it's a gist of what he said, but he basically said that he saw him progressing every week. And so to me, that made me think that he still had a lot to learn. I think that Doug Peterson was the perfect coach for this team. And I think that he is going to get a lot out of Trevor Lawrence, which could be a huge jump next year.
I completely agree. I think maybe Urban Meyer and the mess that was last year, maybe the best thing that could have happened for Trevor Lawrence's career, because it could have been either the best or the worst, right? He could have learned really bad habits. It could have really soured him on the NFL. Clearly, that's not what happened. It gave him a year to just kind of get a feel for things. Whereas this year, he knew what to expect. He knew what was happening, and he could really focus on learning his craft this year. The leadership, the character, the attitude, I don't know what you want to call it, that I see, the persona that he has now at the end of the season versus where he was a year ago, he has grown so much that you're right. In a lot of ways, it's almost like he could have been benched last year, and this was his rookie year. The leap that I anticipate for him next year, I think, is just going to keep getting better. I think Doug Peterson ended up being exactly the right choice for them. We've been talking about Jacksonville for probably 3-4 years, that they're gonna. This is the year they're gonna finally
make it.
They let us down, and through 6 weeks of this year, I thought the same thing again.
Yeah,
and then it just started falling into place for them. And I will say, I think Kansas City underestimated them, looked past them, was so busy worrying about the Bills, Cincinnati, that they were looking past Jacksonville. And I think that combined with, Chad Henne did a nice job when he came in, when Mahomes went out. The fact that Mahomes came back in tells me they were scared. They saw what Jacksonville had done to the Chargers the week before. And while it never felt, you're right, it didn't feel as close as a 7-point game. I think they showed a little fear, a little crink, a little chunk out of that armor than Kansas City by bringing Mahomes back in and risking the rest of their playoffs to bring him back in.
Yeah.
it says a lot about Jacksonville. I think this is a team that will learn more from this loss than they would have if they had won. I think this is a very good. They made it too deep into the playoffs for a team that's growing and evolving like they are. I think that Doug Peterson for sure will make sure they learn the good lessons from this experience. And next year they'll be probably the favorites in their division, and they'll have this experience to bring with them for the playoffs next year.
Now, I don't want anyone to think that we're skipping the Chiefs. We're going to talk about the Chiefs when we talk about the AFC Championship preview. We are going to talk about them too.
I have a new phrase for you.
Oh, what is it?
I have Chiefs fatigue.
Well, yeah, it's just like Brady fatigue. Yeah, I get it. If I hear the word Patrick Mahomes, and I live in Kansas City, people, it's 10 times worse for me. Let me tell you. But love the kid, love them. The team is so good. But yeah, I get it. All right, couple of little comments that we have in our chat. Graham says, in the future, the Jags might want to start covering Kelsey too. He says I'm no defensive guru, but I think that's a good game plan. Yeah. That's probably a good point. Yeah.
I feel like I tweet that at the end of every Kansas City playoff game.
I do.
Is no one on Kelsey?
I know. It's so true.
One job as a defense, and that's to keep Kelsey away from you don't even have Tyreek Hill to worry about anymore.
I know.
It's just Kelsey.
No one else.
It's amazing how much he's open. It's absolutely, I meant like wide open.
Yeah. It's so true. And then R McBRBGB, I love it. He says she, I'm not sure actually now that I say that.
It's George.
There is no sin. Oh, George. Hi, George. There is no sin in saying San Diego Chargers, Oakland Raiders, or the New England Patriots, because they started out as the Boston Pats and played at Fenway Park. Yes, they did.
Well, I always call them San Diego, so
I know. Just move right on back. All right, so let's now move on to the next game, and we are going to talk about it. This was a good game. I mean, it was better. It could have been a complete blowout, and Jacksonville found a way to make it a good game. The next game we're going to talk about was a total and complete blowout. It was a disaster of a game. There's no other way to put it. We have the New York Giants against the Philadelphia Eagles. New York Giants 7, Philadelphia Eagles 38. Now, I have to tell you this. Jalen Hurts didn't even have that great of a game. That's what I just am baffled at. He was 16 of 24 for 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But Daniel Jones, 15 of 27, 135 yards, no touchdowns. This game was god awful to watch. It was not good. It was, and I'm not trying to be mean to the Giants. I was so impressed with what they did the week before, and they walked in, and this is why I'm like, oh, the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. They just plowed them. I was shocked at this. I don't understand exactly what happened other than the Eagles are healthy again and they started to get a lot of their players back. But Michelle, I'm going to shoot this to you. The Giants, you know this team well. They're in the division that you watch. They didn't show up. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure they got off the bus.
I think they did. I think this was. This is what I expected.
Really, I expected a better game.
Absolutely, I had no interest in watching this game because I knew that Philadelphia was going to do just what they did. And the thing is you play when you're in the same division. This is the third matchup, right? And so they know each other well. But Philly is far more talented than the New York Giants, and the Philadelphia Eagles that started the season, that was undefeated pretty much before Jalen Hurts and with one loss. That's the Eagles that we see now because they're healthy, as you mentioned. Jalen Hurts had time to rest. You know, they could afford to lose those games that they lost, but when they needed them to come in, and you know, they're just good all across the board. They have everything that you need. They can rush. They can run. They have a quarterback. While Jalen Hurts didn't throw the ball a whole lot, he scored 3 touchdowns. So that's two passing and 1 rushing. And that's a lot of, just himself.
Crazy.
And so, he was my early MVP. Is probably a tweet that I tweeted. Someone did a poll. He wasn't even listed. Mm-hmm. And I remember putting, well, that's Jalen Hurts. Like that's the MVP. That's the guy. So yeah, I didn't expect the Giants to be in this game. I think they got into the playoffs. Our division was pretty tough this year. And they snuck in there. They played decent in the end of the year, but they were no match for Philly. They were no match for Philly.
So Sue in our chat said, you put Philly up against the Giants, Philly wins every time. Kudos to the Giants for even getting that far. They had a great year. They really did have a great year. No one was putting the Giants in the playoffs. Nobody. This was going to be Daniel Jones's last year. They were going to get rid of him. They're going to, have to get rid of Barkley so they get more, draft picks, and we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I still say Brian Daboll is the coach of the year just for what he did with so few resources that he had. I know Kate hates him. Kate hates Brian Daboll as much as Lisa hates Geno Smith. I'm just telling you.
Probably. But I mean, what we talked about in the preseason was if Saquon Barkley was healthy and they could figure out how to run the ball, this was a make or break season for Daniel Jones. You either make the leap to being an NFL starting quarterback or you're done. This was it for him. And I thought 10 games through the season that he had made that leap, that he had figured it out, that he was doing what he needed to do. And then the inconsistency, I expected a better game. I expected Philly to win. I expect Philly to get all the way to the Super Bowl, but I expected the Giants to at least give them a game. And this is where I struggle with Daboll, is I didn't understand the play calling. I didn't understand the decisions that were made during that game. It's the inconsistencies from week to week with the game plan and the way they're doing things that frustrates me. And so, like I said, I picked Philly to win. I didn't pick him to win by 31 points. I thought it would be maybe a 10-point game. I thought it would be more like what we saw in the Bengals-Bills game, is that Philly would just get on the board and keep going, and New York would just, every time they would get close, Philly would just sprint out again. So that, again, it's the inconsistencies that frustrate me with that team. I thought they definitely had a good season for them this year, and I think they can move forward with Daniel Jones and with Saquon.
You got to get him some help, though.
What to do to get him help now?
So
I think
crazy.
Making the playoffs makes it easier to get guys in free agency, right? You get the guys that want to go to a team that's on the verge of winning, and Philly is probably going to own this division for as long as Jalen Hurts is here, but they can be competitive. They can get to the playoffs again. They would attract some good free agents, so they need some weapons. Now that they know, I think if they know that he's their quarterback, now it's like, all right, now let's go ahead and get him what he needs.
All right, let's move on to the next game. So this one, while I expected Philly to win, I didn't expect him to win by that much. This game is the one that got me. So this is the Cincinnati Bengals against the Buffalo Bills. Cincinnati won 27-10. Here's what got me. Josh Allen, 25 of 42, 265 yards. I'm not sure. He was also their highest rushing player. He had 8 carries for 26 yards. Devin Singletary only got 24 yards in this game. I was so confused by what was going on with Buffalo. I will say this. I picked the Buffalo to go to the Super Bowl this year. I wanted them to win. I was all in on Buffalo this year. And what I watched on that field was a revved up rock and roll Cincinnati Bengals. And I'm freaking obsessed with that team right now. I love them. So I don't care what Eli Apple said. People don't even come at me. I just love the team. I love their attitude. But what is interesting to me is that Buffalo seemed to come out flat and they looked tired. And I'm wondering, Michelle, if you agree that I think this season just caught up to them. All the crap that team had to deal with. Not just Hamlin. They had that massive shooting in Buffalo right before the season. They had injury after injury. They lost Von Miller. It was just one thing after another for the
Blizzards,
Bills.
Where they have to go play in Detroit because there's 6 feet of snow and their linemen need help shoveling out of their homes and driveways to even get to train station to go to the park.
I really feel like what I saw on the field was a team where their season, and not necessarily the play, but the drama and everything that happened with their season, looked like it was sitting on their shoulders. Michelle, do you agree?
I think that the pressure of being the Super Bowl favorite in preseason for the last 3 years is what they look
Could
like.
be.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest problem is that they have been placed into the Super Bowl the last 3 years and they have not lived up to those expectations. And this was the year that everyone say, this is the year. And then the Hamlin thing happened. And so, that I think that did kind of delay some of it or put different kind of pressure on them. And then having him at the game, was pressure because you want to win so bad for him because he's at the game. But the Giants, I mean, I didn't believe the Bills would make it to the Super Bowl. I picked Cincinnati to win this game. I felt like I actually they weren't my Super Bowl pick. I think every year they put them in as the leader. But if you watch their season, I mean, they struggled at some point, even prior to the Hamlin situation, where the Dolphins could have almost won the division, had they not lost Tua and had some of the issues that they had, because Buffalo, Josh Allen was kind of inconsistent.
He was. He looked like first season Josh Allen this year. Yeah.
Right. And outside of last year's playoff, this is pretty much how he's played in the playoffs. Besides the one where they made them change the overtime rules, this is pretty much what he does. This is pretty much how he plays. And he rushes a lot. He runs a lot. They're better when he runs. I mean, truth be told, they are a better team when he runs the ball, but they just can't seem to get over that hump. And I think the pressure of every year in the preseason, because the media, and he's the media favorite and the media darling, and there's so much pressure on him as a young quarterback to live up to those expectations from preseason.
Yeah.
They get lucky a little bit because everybody talks Dallas and Dak, but Buffalo was the favorite to win. Yeah. Buffalo was the favorite to be in the Super Bowl from preseason.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as Tom Brady left New England, there were no more excuses, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You've got no excuse to not win your division every year now, because this is the story you're telling. As someone who had Josh Allen as their fantasy football quarterback, I can tell you about how inconsistent he was this year. Yeah. I just know that you're right in that from the minute that game started, Cincinnati just looked up and energized and ready to go. And it didn't matter that there was snow on the ground and nobody cared. And Buffalo just looked flat. And this was the only game of the weekend where I picked the underdog to win. I picked Cincinnati to win because I wanted Buffalo to win from the standpoint of then they would have had to play the Chiefs at a neutral site.
That would have been fun.
That would have been fun. But I don't mind the Bengals don't seem to have a problem going into Kansas City and win. So I just don't think the Bengals are getting for a team that went to the Super Bowl last year. They weren't even favored to win our division.
I know.
So
they were definitely.
This will give them the respect they need because they came out both on offense and defense. That defense was crazy, and I think Buffalo's defense played worse than their offense did. Buffalo's defense in that weather should have had the advantage of being able to handle stuff. And they
don't underestimate the fact that neutral site game. I think when we talk about team looking ahead and looking past, I really believe Buffalo was looking past this game. I don't know why they would, but they were. I believe so. And just the mere fact that they sold tickets, that pissed Cincinnati off. You're selling tickets to a game. They have to win this game first. And so that's why Cincinnati was pumped up. But I think that all of that stuff was on the mind of the Buffalo. We're going to play this neutral game, Kansas City, to get to the Super Bowl because that's their mission. So, maybe they kind of overlooked Cincinnati as well. And came out flat.
All right, we have some great comments. So Graham says Buffalo hasn't had a run game for a while and their defense didn't turn up. I may be biased. He is biased, you guys, just so you know. He's a Dolphins fan. So I may be biased, but I thought they were lucky to get us past us last week. They were.
I agree.
You're not wrong, Graham, because Miami played them well. And I equated that to it being a divisional game. We talked about that last week. but now it's like, no, Buffalo was struggling some. Then Sue says, she is a Bills fan, says we depend way too much on Josh instead of calling a good game overall. And I think that is true too. They put a lot of emphasis on what Josh can do instead of being more well-rounded in their play calling. And then we have George. He says Buffalo had events that were out of their control as their game against Cincinnati was a struggle no one expected. Josh Allen had an average game, and that took away from what the Bills could do. And I think that goes back into what Sue was saying, is that they put too much pressure and too much require too much of him instead of spreading that out a little bit more. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the last game. This is going to be a long show, guys. Just get used to it. All right, so it's the Cowboys against the Niners. This game was so fun to watch. And I'm sure it was not fun for Michelle. But I liked this game for two reasons. Number one, because the Cowboys lost 12, the San Francisco's 19. Dak Prescott was 23 of 37, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. We're going to talk about that. Brock Purdy, little Mr. Brock Purdy, 19 of 29, 214 yards. And the reason why I liked this game is because both teams exposed exactly what is wrong with the team. So we had Dak's interceptions and inability to get the offense rolling, the play calling, whatever you want to do. And then you have the 49ers. It's like all we have is defense right now because Brock Purdy panics if anyone rushes up the center. And so I loved it because I was like, because I don't want the 49ers in the Super Bowl. So we needed to see what was wrong with them. But I will tell you this, this game, and Kate, I'm going to go to you first because then I want to talk to Michelle about the Cowboys a little bit. This game to me, I really thought Dallas had a chance because of the way they played the week before. But then there was a lot of old habits that just showed up. And the 49ers defense is a freaking, freight train.
But both defenses showed up. I'll give them that. Both defenses showed up.
Game. Yep.
I think without the interceptions, it's a different game. Those were costly. I still don't understand why we had Zeke Elliott snapping the ball at the end. Oh. The play calling at the end, their last possession, and then at the end, that play calling was a hot mess. I liked watching, Brock Purdy do weird things and then go over to the sideline, and the coach is like, "What are you doing?" He's like, I know, I forgot, I'm new, I'm young,
hey, I'm a rookie.
Yeah. So it was what I thought was the most interesting thing is San Francisco was favored to win this game.
Yep.
But the announcers were on Dallas' side the whole time.
They were.
Dallas needs to do this, get back in the game. Dallas needs to, like, everything. They snipped a little bit of the San Francisco talk in there, but their whole attitude was decidedly about getting Dallas into this game and winning this game, and here's what they need to do. And it was just they were very bummed that Dallas didn't win. So,
yeah. It was interesting. I think I felt like this was a bit of that what they thought, because my husband and I commented the same thing about the announcers, is that this was going to be a Dak redemption game, that he was going to come back and surprise everybody, and that didn't
I don't think
happen.
Either team could get by Philly, so I didn't really care which one won.
Me neither.
Sorry, Michelle. I was thinking of you the whole time.
I was,
but I'm like,
too.
I don't know if Michelle would rather just be done now and rest and sit back, or if she wants to go get a 38-7 loss to the Eagles next week, because they're in your division, so we don't want to play them one more time.
You're right.
Which way you want to go?
Michelle, here's my questions for you. So for those of you guys who are new to our show, Michelle is a Dallas Cowboys fan. She knows the team backwards and forwards. And so here's the interesting thing for me about this is that they played so well in that wild card game. And I was so impressed with what I was seeing and what was going on. And then they flipped the script completely against a much tougher opponent. Well, let's give them the credit, where it's due for sure. The 49ers are a much stronger opponent and a much stronger defense. What I want to know, what did you see in that last game that you think is either fixable with Dallas or that they need to completely gut because they just keep stalling one year after another? And it has to be, and I know the Seahawks infuriate me, so I can't imagine that this infuriates you too.
Well, one thing that needs to happen will never happen, so we won't even get into that.
I know discussion. We all know what that one thing is,
and that's the number one thing. And so,
Jerry
since that won't happen, we can go to some other things. And I think that Dallas needs to move on from Kellen Moore. I don't think that Kellen Moore can make Dakota better. He can't. he just doesn't have that experience to do that. His play calling is extremely bad, but I think you guys had me on in the preseason or earlier in the season, and I talked about how big of a loss Amari Cooper was going to be to the Dallas offense.
You did.
And we saw that because some of the interceptions that Dakota throws during the season, or some of them, even one of them that he threw in the game, it's the route that the receiver is running and how he runs it and how he lets the defender runs that route better than he does. And it's always the same guy. It's always, or he's forcing the ball to Amari Cooper. I'm sorry, not to Amari Cooper, but to CeeDee Lamb, which is what he did,
Yeah.
But I think the biggest problem outside of Dakota throwing interceptions is Kellen Moore, is the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
They're going to have to move on from him, and they need to get someone in there that can bring out the best or get Dakota to play consistently. See, I picked San Francisco to be in the Super Bowl. I just want to say that San Francisco and Cincinnati. So,
but that was Trey Lance was that quarterback, right?
No, this was right at the end
right before the playoffs.
This is right before the playoffs. And so, but the thing is that I didn't know which Dakota was going to show up for this game. And because he had such a perfect game against Tampa Bay, he played marvelous. He did things that I have been fussing at him about the whole year. But I know that he doesn't do this consistently. He's not going to do it 2 weeks in a row. And so when everyone was upset with the kicker, and I kept saying, we're going to need him next week, because that's what we're going to have to do, is kick field goals. And so that's what showed up. The defense played well enough to for us to win the game. They gave up a touchdown at the end, but they played well enough. And when you look at San Francisco's team, that's why I'm so high on them. Of course, I love defense. But when you have a defense like that who can carry an inexperienced quarterback, as they did, and beat a team, because Dallas is a good team. They didn't beat a bad team. They beat a good team.
Right.
And they beat a good team. Dallas, I think it has to start with the offensive coordinator. The defense is strong. Of course, that we have to be able to keep Dan. We were able to do that. He was going to leave last year. So I don't know if maybe he wanted to come back just for 1 year to see if we can win. And now that we don't, he may move on. Hopefully he doesn't. Maybe Jerry has something else up his sleeve.
Jerry needs to throw a Brinks truck at him. As much money as possible.
We definitely can't lose him. We're going to have to get some receivers. We got to get another running back. It's time to move on from Zeke. He just can't do it. He doesn't have it. And hopefully that Pollard can come back from his broken fibula and come back healthy and strong, because we've wasted some of his years.
Graham said losing Pollard didn't help.
Absolutely did not.
That was huge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was
absolutely.
You know what? Zeke got paid, and then he did what, in my opinion, running backs do when they get paid, is then they do nothing.
Nothing.
And he has done nothing for you.
Stick with the rookies, people.
He was on his way to doing nothing when he got paid. So that was the question of whether we should have paid him, because he was really on his way to doing nothing.
Yeah.
So and of course you guys know who would I have
might have
drafted?
to order a George Kittle jersey, because I love him. He's hilarious.
Don't you dare.
Yeah. He's hilarious.
No.
Making faces at the sky cam like that was, I was dying.
No, I can't do it.
You, dude.
You can't play that. You can't play that game. It's going to be really interesting to see what Dallas does, because there has to be a lot of changes next year. And I hope that Dan Quinn is not one of them, because I think that's one of the glue that's holding the team together. And maybe Jerry goes to Dan and says, okay, stick it out one more year. If McCarthy sucks again, this is your team. Whatever it is, you let him do it, because that Dan Quinn is probably the best cap. The best. I said I was going to say captain. He's kind of a captain, best coach on the team right now. So, Sue, and you might not know this, Michelle, but how's the salary cap for Dallas? Can they afford to get?
We're always over it. I mean,
you guys
we're always over it. I mean, we have a business guy that heads our team, but we're always over it. We never have money for anything, but he makes a way.
Yeah,
So
you get rid of Zeke, you'll open up a little bit of space.
you know, we have to get rid of Zeke. We got to get a new offensive coordinator. They have to get some receivers in there. They have to get someone. So I think that's those are the biggest upgrades that they need.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the NFC and AFC championship games at 2:00 Central Time, so 3:00 Eastern Time. On Sunday, you have the 49ers at the Philadelphia Eagles. And then at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you have the Bengals at the Chiefs. Okay, two things. Number one, I'm so excited for this 49ers Eagles game because I think my wish is going to come true and San Francisco is going to lose. But I'm all about seeing how Jalen looks against that really good defense. Because let's be honest, the Eagles didn't have a ton of tough competition in their schedule this year. It was a little bit of an easy road at the beginning. But I'm interested to see what happens. More importantly, I'm interested to see what Brock Purdy does when he has Brandon Graham just storming down the center. Oh, look, it makes me so happy. Like I get all giddy about it. Michelle, I know you think San Francisco is going to win this game. Do you think it's purely because of the defense?
I hate both of them. Let's just start with that. But I think San Francisco edges out. It's tough because I had the Eagles as the best team for most of the season until Jalen got hurt, and then San Francisco got stronger. And they got better. And that defense, again, you know how I feel about defense. Defense wins championships. So this is what I see in both teams. They both can run the ball. They both have great passing game. They both have tons of weapons. And they both have great defense. So it's going to come down to who makes the least amount of mistakes. Right. I feel like San Francisco's defense, because they've played together longer, is just a little bit better than the Eagles defense. And if they can keep Jalen Hurts out of the end zone with his feet, they have an opportunity to win.
Listen, I agree with all of that, but I think you also have to factor in home field in Philly and the fact that we got a snowstorm coming through Wednesday and Thursday, the remnants of which will still be here on the weekend, and be cold. And I think that might be a little bit of the edge that Philly needs to get by that defense.
Graham has a really good point in chat. He said, oh, whoops, that's the wrong one. So sorry, Graham. This one. He said, San Francisco and Philly can easily be a 15-12 game or 38-35 game. It's so true. It's absolutely true. Although I don't know that Brock Purdy has 35 points in him, but with a real, defensive line coming at him. But maybe that's the key because both of them have great defenses. San Francisco's is a little better. It is. But the offense on the Eagles, oh my God, this can be a good game, you guys. I'm so excited.
It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be close. Whatever way it's going to be close. Whoever wins is going to be close.
Yeah. I agree completely. Although I'm going, come on, Eagles. Come on, Eagles. Do not make me watch a San Francisco Super Bowl. Okay. So then the last game, the AFC Championship game. So it's just a repeat of last year. But the interesting thing there's two major things about the Bengals and Kansas City. It's a repeat of last year. We saw what happened, came down to the last second, just like Kansas City beat the Bills. That's how Cincinnati beat Kansas City. Two major differences. One, experience for Cincinnati. I think that they are revved up. They feel disrespected. And I feel like they are a much more cohesive team this year than last year. The second, Patrick Mahomes' ankle. And I am sorry, people, they can downplay it all they want. Andy Reid can say he's doing well with treatment. It is a high ankle sprain. We saw his foot. Now, granted, it went in instead of out, which is a little bit easier to deal with. But I think Cincinnati's going to run down his throat all day and make him run on that ankle. And so as good as Patrick Mahomes is and as good as the Chiefs can be, I just feel like Cincinnati is rolling a little too hard for Patrick Mahomes to be a little bit injured. Now, he's been injured before and played amazing. I don't know. This one feels different to me.
I had someone tell me at work today that the fact that he came back into the game means he's fine. And I'm like, I don't think you understand a high ankle sprain. he was better right after it happened than he's going to be 24, 48 hours later because of the swelling, because of everything else that's going to go on when he's not on that foot.
The minute they cut that tape off, it went poof.
Poof. Like those puffer fish do.
Exactly.
I said, exactly. I said, their only chance of him playing was to bring him back in while everything was still being held together.
Yeah.
I said, who knows what is going to happen, how much he's going to be able to practice this week. And Cincinnati is the kind of team that's in their head because they beat them 3 times now. And yet, so the Chiefs are all like, it's the Bengals. And the Bengals are like, dude, let's go play a game. Let's go win another one. I got my cat ears on. I'm all Bengals. We saw it last year, and I think this year it'll be the same way. They just don't seem to feel that pressure the way other teams do. It's like they're too young to know.
They're not too stupid to know better. It's true. It's true.
But that's how they're getting through and winning these games, is because they don't know that they're supposed to be freaked out by the juggernaut that is the Chiefs. So.
Right. And they are a juggernaut. I mean, we have to keep that in mind.
Yes.
Like we've said, no one bothers to cover Travis Kelce.
Someone please cover Kelce. I need to know right now.
Yeah.
Is it Eli Apple? Who is it Bell?
That's your
got Kelce.
But I think that Andy Reid also, I mean, because they've played each other so many times, I think that they're prepared. They've already played once this year. I think it'll be good. It is going to be, I think the wind chill is going to be 9 degrees in Kansas City. It's going to be snowing the second half of the game. It's going to be cold. And I don't think that phases either one of these teams. So that is not going to be a factor in any way, shape, or form. It is
Joe
going
Mixon.
to be. I know. God. So, Michelle, do you think you think that Cincinnati's going to win this game too?
I do.
I do too.
I do.
I think I'll
I'm only saying that because I picked them to go to Super Bowl. But I think I can't wait. I'm so excited about both of these games, actually. So I think that they're both going to be great. And yeah, I mean, Kansas City has that revenge factor coming in, having lost, but I don't know. I just feel like Cincinnati is going to be, I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to he's going to play, but I don't know if he's going to finish the whole game. And if he does, he's going to be hobbled. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that makes you try to do too much. So I just think that Joe Burrow, he's grown. I mean, they made it last year. It seemed like it was a fluke that they made it last year. They're a veteran playoff team because they made it to the Super Bowl last year. And so I think they're ready. I think they can get back and they can win this game no matter what the weather is. I think they can, because they can run the ball. If they get Joe Mixon going, it's going to be tough to beat them.
I'm almost afraid this is going to be one of those years where the 2 championship games are better than watching the Super Bowl. Because the 2 teams that I think are going to win, I don't think are going to play a good game in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I would pick different teams to win if I was like, which teams do I think would be the best matchup for like a really exciting Super Bowl? And it's not Bengals Eagles.
No.
But I'm going to enjoy this weekend, though. I tell you that. I'm expecting good football.
And Kate, you said something when we were prepping for this show about how young all these quarterbacks are, and they're all just babies, in there. Brock Purdy's a rookie. You have, Jalen Hurts.
When Pat Mahomes is the old quarterback in the room, you're like, what?
Right.
Yeah. They're very young. I think
23, 24, 26, and 27, right?
Yeah, they're babies.
Brady and Rodgers and Cousins and some of these, Matt Ryan, some of these guys need to think about retiring and just letting the new crop of guys in. There's this space where we had like Darnold and Baker and those guys that they just all
they skipped.
But then there's this next crop of guys that are just all doing really well. Yeah. So it is
going to be a fun weekend. I'm excited. Well, guys, we went a little long and I knew we probably would on this show because we wanted to talk in depth about these games because, they're important. And so we thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and sticking with us for all 50 minutes that we were on tonight. We appreciate it. We will be back again next week to discuss these games. And then we're going to look a little bit at the Super Bowl, but probably we'll start to preview the combine and a few other good things that are coming up. That's very exciting for our very own Kate is going to be at the combine for us this year. So that'll be very exciting. But Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. I just love it when you come on because you just have such great insights. So we appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We love it. We're going to have her on all the time in the off season, you guys. So
Yes.
hang out. Make sure that you follow her. Her at is right there on the screen at the Sports Jinx, JINKS. Make sure that you follow her. All right, everyone. We will see you next Tuesday after these fantastic games this weekend. I hope everyone has a great time. Bye-bye, everybody.